Perfect. Hello. Good morning. My name's Alan Green. I am a systems engineer for Sony Computer Entertainment America. Most of you probably know our organization as Sony PlayStation. A little bit about myself. I am a systems engineer. I just said that. I work in the gaming industry. I have worked in the gaming industry pretty much my entire career. If there's one thing that you need to know kind of about me and my opinions, it's I think that from a technology perspective, we're standing on the shoulders of giants. From those that came before us and learning from what they've done, we're able to do things faster. We're able to do things quicker. So if you take nothing else away from my talk, from what I'm about to tell you about, if you don't agree with it, I'm totally OK with that. But tell one of your coworkers thank you for something that they've done or for a ticket that they've closed earlier. Send a text to your mentor that you haven't texted out or that you haven't talked to in a while, and just let him know thanks. And this will all be worth it from my perspective. I have been 5 years. I have been working 5 years at Sony Computer Entertainment America. And when people ask generally what it is that I do for a living, I say that all of us work to bring together the regions that we have businesses in, to really, all across the globe, to leverage each other's strengths, to rely on each other's strengths, and yet at the same time celebrate each other's differences. And this is really, I think, kind of a key component. We don't want to mitigate differences. We don't want to get it out of the way. We don't want to do any of that. Because if you eliminate all of the differences inside of your work or inside of your life, you end up in like the Giver style of world where everything's gray, and then eventually we all eat the same food. Spoiler alert: Soylent Green is people. You're homogenizing all of the fun and all of what makes our world interesting and beautiful and diverse and amazing out of your work. And I don't think that's anything that we should strive for. I have about 6 years personal experience with Puppet. Our current install has been running the software for the greater part of 9 years. I went onto our older version control server and actually pulled the first commit date. It's been a while. About 2 years ago, we made the transition from open source to enterprise. Hopefully, I will talk a little bit about that later on in the talk, as to why we did that, why you may do that, why you may not do that, and go from there. In our industry, button, forward, only forward. In our industry, we've got kind of two competing forces from an IT perspective. We have the classical IT groups. They're self-assured. They've got processes. They've got programs that you all know the names of. You can get certified in things. And they're there because they know what they add to the business, and we've had some 20, 30 years for those to fully flesh themselves out. So as a result, they're there and they're present, and they're really used to running inside of a certain way. And I think you guys can all think of examples inside of your organization where you definitely know that to be true. In addition, we have the more games industry side of ourselves, which has a quicker, more accelerated pace. We've got a super quick time to market. We've got to get product out on the shelf. We're not sure if we're doing things at the right scale. Sometimes we're even unsure if we're doing things, period. And we're always trying to kind of weave ourselves in and out of really the complicated workplace that we find ourselves in. And inevitably, those two collide. And what happens when they collide is a whole lot of conflict and maybe a little bit of blood. But what's going to come out of that, or what we'd like to come out of that, is we want to take from the more self-assured business process, we want to keep the good business sense, right, that we've learned from our classical IT groups. It's going to defend the organization against two things: the cruel outside world, which is what it is, and the inside as well. I mean, a lot of the processes that are built around, obviously your service management, so on and so forth, they're built to keep you from mismanagement, right? But it's still added overhead. It's still time that you have to take. But we want to take the second, and we want to use that. We want to use the games industry part of it to really accelerate our process. I know I've got to put a product on a shelf. I've got to get something out in front of you to play and to enjoy. So in that respect, we've got to be lightning quick. And that's going to be in response times. That's going to be in time to market. That's going to be in everything, from the top of the stack to the bottom of the stack, bar none. Because any time you're adding an extra second, an extra minute, an extra hour, that's one more second, minute, hour that you're not actually having somebody enjoy what it is that you're trying to make. And so I think inevitably this is kind of the conclusion that starts to arise. A lot of folks go, oh, I've got to be defensive about my things, but I've got to be agile with my things, so I just have a lot of things. So how do we get less things, right? That's a very common, I want to bring it all down, I want to run less, I want to do what I have better but smaller, and so how do I centralize my infrastructure so that everybody can leverage the same improvements, right? I've got less things, which means by proxy, when I improve one thing, everybody starts to see that bonus, and they start to see that win. So how do I just get less? Like, let's whittle down, core competencies. You hear all of these terms, I'm sure. Unfortunately, so in the beginning, I think you're going to be fine. Like, this is what's going to happen. You will whittle down. You will become, your organization will be quicker on its feet. It'll be able to work with the tool set that it has. But then eventually, you're going to realize that a new way of doing something has disrupted your thing. One of your core set of tools and utilities has been disrupted because of it. And so you're going to say, no, well, we just did it's going to be a big project, new thing. I don't know if we want to spend energy. We just sat in a meeting to close out the whittling down of the old thing. And so you're probably going to take a pass on the first new thing. And then you're going to run an improvement on your small core, right? You're going to run a tiny little improvement on it, and maybe you're going to onboard one more customer. And now it's a little bit bigger. And then you're going to come across a new thing, and you go, it's a little bit rough around the edges. We're not sure 100%. Plus, we just put some more improvements into our old original thing, and then you're going to take a pass on number 2. And then you're going to do this again, and you're going to improve, and you're going to end up in this loop where you circle through, and slowly your small things are going to become bigger and bigger and bigger. And when you look at rough technologies, when you look at things that aren't really ready for what you would call production, you're just going to find yourself habitually taking a pass. And this is where this statement really, in my opinion, fails to withstand the test of time. You're going to realize that some new way of doing something, you'll end up, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a year, maybe it's 2, maybe it's 5. But you're going to realize that some new way of doing something has disrupted your entire way of business. It's going to get your livelihood in its sights. Your agility that was once so prized in your organization is now lacking. And you will find yourself in a market where once you are a market leader, slowly on the periphery, that was supposed to be a little bit lower. It happens. Slowly on the edge, from the outside, looking in. And you've done this the whole time thinking that that was the right thing to do. So in order to combat it, we've got to do one thing. We've got to maintain relevance, and we've got to maintain it at an accelerated pace. Which means that if I'm not worrying so much about the things, that what I really need to do is I need to deploy any thing at any time, any given service, as quickly as possible in any given configuration. Whatever they want. Whatever, yes, done, taken care of. We're not there to say no. We're there to just make it happen, and we're there to make it happen at a very, very nice clip. You probably don't, you're not probably fully sold on this just yet. I would not be either, I'll be honest with you. So let's talk a little bit about the business groups that I work with. Inside of Worldwide Studios, we have some 15+ studios. Each studio is anywhere from 2 to 250 people. Every studio wants a different technology stack. Studio A, they want Mercurial for version control. They want Nagios. They want Postgres. Studio B wants to use Perforce. They want to run a ROX cluster. Lord knows why, but they do. And they want all of their databases to be running MySQL. Studio C, they want Git. They want Cacti. They want NoSQL. Studio D wants a private open stack for their internal deployment. These are all these technology stacks that they request. And when you look at the experiences that we provide, we believe that no technology stack that you can unify on, nothing you can drill down to its core essence, is going to be able to provide the type of experience that's as varied as all of those. I'm not going to pick 4 technologies and just pull them out and say this is what we're doing and end up with those games. I'm not going to do it. And so we have this whole gamut of technologies to choose from that we've got to pick from and we've got to do. In addition, we've got, this is kind of where we're going to split some hairs a little bit, we've got the experience. This is what we refer to as the consumer experience. This is you. This is you with your buddy at home playing a video game. And the consumer experience is everything, I think. That's the first thing a lot of people don't quite understand. It's from the moment you cross over the threshold or you go through the doors at Target, at Walmart, when you sometimes, hopefully, some of you have had that experience where you walk up, you look at the shelf, maybe you're a kid, and you see the perfect thing, and you buy it, and it just turns out to be this amazing. That's still an experience. That's all your experience. Taking it home, unwrapping it from the shrink wrap, putting it in, hearing that chunk, hearing that satisfying sound, that's all your experience. Until the point where you even put the video game in, and then you play it, and then you have a continuation of that experience coming through. So we know our mission, bar none, is to make that experience from top to bottom amazing, world-class, unique. Something that you can only experience at one place, and maybe at one point in time. In addition, we have the customer experience. This is more from the standard IT perspective that I think a lot of you are more familiar with, right? I have studios, they're one customer. I have tools teams, they're another customer. I have a motion capture stage, they're another customer. I have a sound team, they're another customer. I have tool chain folks for the sound and the motion capture teams, they're another customer. They're all trying to make kind of the tool that they think is best and that they think is solving the problem of their day and is solving the problem of their time. In addition, we've got contracts. I mean, if we think someone else from outside can do it and can do it better, we'll be tying them in. They'll be executing on their contract, and then we'll be breaking them down again. So when you look at kind of this ecosystem in which exists, I'm fairly sure, in some way, shape, or form inside your organization as well, there's this constant build-up, tear down. He's over here, they're moving there. I had a studio that was 20 folks. Now it's an incubation team. I got 4 working on a new project over there. I still have the 16 over here. This technical artist is now moving over to that. It's just this constant movement, and it's this constant mess in some ways, but beautiful, most definitely. And so we have to pick things, and we have to pick technologies that really let us capitalize on the beauty of that. And so we kind of reached this question internally to kind of ask, well, what drives our adoption? Why do we use technologies? If we're not going to use the 4, right, which ones are we going to use, or what's that going to look like? And the first question, or the first answer that obviously comes back is, well, we want the best one. I will applaud you, yes. I'm going to kind of go 8th grade middle school teacher on you and say, like, best is a pretty empty word. It doesn't mean anything. It's just, you've got to put a value behind it so that we can then get that into something actionable, so that we can then turn that into a little bit something more an engineering team can drive on. So the second one that came back is we go, OK, fastest. I applaud you for not using best. I will be honest. But I think we can all kind of think of technologies that were either maybe fastest in execution time or fastest in time to market that didn't take off. They didn't actually find their niche, and for whatever reason, nobody's really using them and considers them the best, for lack of a better word, way to do things. So he says it's the most operational. What I think, from my perspective, the most operational technologies the IT organization absolutely loves, and nobody else really does, because they don't necessarily see the benefits of running and operating the most operational technology. And again, if our end goal is to get that into a customer's hands and to get that experience from their perspective, why am I buying and using something that's not going to help them in the end game, right? And you can rinse and repeat. Hopefully in your organization you have a couple of adjectives that come to mind. Please think about those and what you would be picking. So what we basically settled on was we're going to be adopting a technology that encourages us to create or to make the most creative product possible, the most unique product possible. The one that lets you do something that you just didn't know that it was possible, not because it's operational, not because it's fastest, but because you get to do something as an engineer, you get to do something at your job that is either new or it's exciting or it's just different, and you can pass on that new, that exciting, that different, all the way to someone inside of a Blue Blu-ray case. So let's recap just a little bit. I've got a consumer experience. Ooh, sorry. I've got a consumer experience. I've got a customer experience. Again, most creative experience to most creative technologies. I've got a sense of urgency built in from the industry that we're moving along. I have a goal. I have a date in mind. And with all of these things, we can kind of implement together a guide. But it's only a guide, and I really do want to stress that. We're now starting to rough around the edges why we're doing what it is that we're doing, because we've discovered that finding those technologies that really genuinely do make us and let us do things in amazing ways is difficult. And it's for every single group of people, it's also different. You put 4 engineers in the room, you ask what technologies they want to use, I pretty much guarantee you it's going to be 4 different technologies every single time. Or it's going to be 8, or it's going to be 10, or it's going to be 15. So we've given up, which means you just say, all right, what do you want to do? I am not going to be here to dictate to you any of this stuff, so what do you want to do? Which means from the organization's perspective, I've got to be open to anything, right? So my process has to be open to anything. And if my process is open to anything so that we can learn anything, so that we can do anything, then we need to be able to deploy at any given time, any given thing, in any given configuration as quickly as possible. What do you need? Let's make it happen, get it out of the way, and let's move on to the next. So this obviously makes Sackboy pretty happy. The question, Parappa enumerates it well, what's probably next coming out, is how. And for us, at least, or for myself, we do it with Puppet. You do it with IT teams. You do it with customers. You do it with anybody who freaking wants to. You don't limit that. There's no reason whatsoever to limit the involvement from the organization's perspective in what's going on. And so let's say that a customer comes to you with a request. And we're going to use version control as an example. Alan, why version control? 1, it's everybody's favorite whipping boy. 2, it gets the Git fanatics very, very riled up. And 3, believe it or not, a lot of people still choose a whole lot of different things. So I think it's a wonderful example. So someone comes to you with a request. That's step 1. I would like a new, we'll say, Subversion server. And they come up, they go, I want a new Subversion server. And then you have that moment. Crap, it's not in Puppet. It's going to take me some time. I don't have a configuration built. So that's what you're going to do. Step 1, you're going to be honest, right? You're going to tell them it's going to take time. Customers are smart people. They are smart people. Oh my goodness, the people in your organization are smart people. It's true. Unless you're security, then you've kind of built your whole worldview around the fact that they aren't very intelligent. But they are. They have to be. So you're going to have to tell them it takes time to make a generic, balanced configuration, something that's abstracted properly, something that looks good, and something that you can actually use in another organization. So you don't just eventually just keep doing the same process every time. And this is true. Good Puppet configs, as I'm sure you all know, take a bit of time. They take some care, they take some love, and they take some thought. So you tell them, OK, it's going to be a couple, 2 to 3 days. I'm going to have to dive on this. I will get it to you. And then they're going to say, OK, 2 to 3 days. Sure, that's fine. I get it. Sounds good. But then what you need to do next is you need to do it right. You need to actually not botch this. I mean, it may sound a little bit obvious, but you need to capitalize on the fact that you've specified a time, it's come out of your mouth, and that's what you're going to make good on. So you've got to look at Hyra. You've got to look at your ENC. You've got to talk about good branched code management. You've got to go with dynamic environments. I think R10K is kind of obviously bubbling up in some respects as one of the leading technologies in that space. A lot of the stuff that we have traditionally seen at Puppet Advanced Training kind of rears its head in this area, but you've really got to spend the time to do it right. And so a customer will say, OK, great, done. Let's say it's finished. 2 days, sling back Subversion control over to him. And then another customer comes to you. We'll go back. I have no back button, so you have to believe me. He has a new request for another server. We'll say it's RCS. We'll say it's an old Unix guy. He's got a big beard and some nice suspenders. He wants an RCS server. Lord knows why, but we find in the source. We make it happen. You do that again. So now we have 2 that we have built the configuration for. And then finally, the third one comes through. And we'll say this one's Git. I need a Git server. This is what I want set up. You go, OK, 2 days. He goes, no. I can't. I've got a demo. I've got something that I've got to get out the door. I've got a go, no-go date for whether or not we're actually even going to do this. I need it now, right? And this is where things start to finally get fun. Because what you get to do at this point is you get to give them options back. And they're not really, my experience, not really ready for this. It's a little weird. Because you're like, OK, I cannot do a Git server immediately for you. It's going to take me a little bit more time than if I was to just deploy it immediately. But obviously, I can just do it in a one-off fashion. But right now, I have a Subversion server configuration ready to go. It's ready to rock and roll. You thank whoever at the studio. Thank Yoshihiro from Y Games. He's the one that requested the Subversion server. I also have an RCS server configuration. Thank the old Unix suspender guy for that one. But it's going to take, and when you reverse this conversation, obviously I think most customers are like, whoa, I'm the customer. I make requests. I'm the requester. That's how this works. But you just kind of posited it back to them. Like, what do you want to do? I want this. What do you? Because we can also do this, we can do this, we can do this, and we can do the third thing. Is that what you want to do? I can do any of them. Let's make it happen. Let's rock and roll. And you're getting, from the start, you're getting creative juices rolling. You're getting it flowing, right? You're taking what was the boring process where you figure out what you want and then use what you want, and you're actually just kind of shoving all of these options out there and saying, let's go, hands down. And this, sometimes they will say, nope, just that's what I need, Git server, spend the 4 hours on it, get it out to me, done, taken care of. Puppetize that back on the back end, right? Don't just leave that one to fester. Again, do it right from the earlier slide. So we've just done, I've just kind of walked you through version control. You are going to rinse and repeat this with package management. You are going to rinse and repeat this with monitoring. You're going to rinse and repeat this with proxies. You are going to rinse and repeat this with business development applications. You are going to continue this feedback loop accordingly, adding and adding to your group of either modules or really service offerings that you will provide for your customers. And eventually, you will have a full array of choices so that when someone comes to you and says, I want this, I want this, I want that, I want the third thing, you go, done. And you get to move on to the next. Again, I'm sure most of you are probably thinking that. My response to this is yes. Yes, it is. It sounds like a lot, because it is a lot. It is management. It is proper care and attention, and there is no replacement for that. There's no replacement for showing up, quite frankly. That said, hopefully, I will give you some pointers / tips on how you screw this up so much less than we did. Start with the obvious, branches, right? I think they're a nigh necessity at this point in time. Proper gatekeeping. I put proper up there. What I really kind of mean is think about gatekeeping. Just sit down for a while and kind of ponder what for you and what for your organization is going to constitute moving something back into production. What's going to constitute leaving it its own special little flower that sits in a branch forever and then silently goes quietly into the cold, dark night. Just what does that mean for you, and where does that, from an energy standpoint and from an effort standpoint and obviously a monetary standpoint, what does that mean? And obviously, make your code as available as possible. Think about what that means for you and your organization as well. Obviously, CI guys, I mean, I'm sure there's some of you in the audience, they're all over this, right? They know your production has got to knock right up against your pre-production, knock right up against your dev, knock right up against your testing, knock right up against your pen testing environment, because that's the only way that you're going to make that bar so low to actually get the quick commit times. So just think about some of these questions beforehand. I think you'll be in really great shape. My other comment is be ready to scale. I think a lot of the tools teams and a lot of folks that build things, they have kind of this field, I call it field of dreams syndrome. This, if you build it, they will come. But then people come, and they're like, oh my God, what do I do next? And I'm like, you built, like, the best possible outcome has just happened here, in that people like the tool that you make, that you have spent a ton of time making, and you don't know how to get it out to more people. Don't be that group. Don't do that, right? Think about what it's going to mean. If step one is, grow popularity and utility, as soon as you hit step two, make that expand with a plan and with purpose and with a drive. And again, kind of on the scale, as much as possible, obviously Puppet is an infrastructure as well, if that's sitting behind you guys, or sitting behind your infrastructure on the back end. Try to spitball your open source to enterprise transition questions. Pre-answer those as much as possible. When does that happen? Does it happen? What are the reasons for that happening? I mean, I think obviously you have open source and not, and philosophical concerns aside, I don't think it's responsible from an engineering standpoint to your organization to just give this a blanket no because you think that you want to just hire another body. There's always a trade-off that you're going to be getting for everything, and having those spelled out so that at least, even if you decide not to, having those spelled out so that when that question comes, you're reducing that time. You're walking right back at it. You're ready to go. You have your answer. And then the business can go ahead and execute, and it can make a decision. And God forbid, let's say you're doing well, then scaling is going to cost money, which is where we're going to talk. I will help out a little bit. I will give you some thoughts on return on investment. You're going to say, oh, I need money to scale because servers cost money. Things, storage and networking cost so much money. You can't make a creative product. You cannot make something that will, in my opinion, touch another human being or let somebody communicate or do whatever it is that you want to do and worry about ROI from only $1 cents, right? We're an R&D company. You need to expect and you need to encourage failures, right? You need to know that many of our internal projects are probably never going to see the light of day because you're going to get to it and you're going to be like, ooh, that didn't turn out exactly how we thought it was. But the ones that don't, they put you on the map. They teach you to do new things. They teach you to do exciting things. They teach you to do innovative things that are actually going to make a change because it's not the same as the 10 things that came before it. This one's different in this way, and that one's different in the next way. So I will be the first to admit, if you probably walk into an office and tell what I just told you to your boss, you'll either be laughed out or patted on the head very patronizingly. I think in practicality, you have to tie this to your agility. This goes back to do it right. You've got to say, look, if we do it, we spend the money, we're going to be able to maintain the exact same execution times that we've always maintained, and we're going to be able to do it on a larger scale. And that's how you're actually going to kind of tie that all back in together. But you need to make good on it. You can't just say, oh, this is what's going to happen, and then kind of go half into it from there, and then go, oh, it didn't really work out. A couple of closing thoughts. Don't forget why you're there. Your brother, your niece, your cousin, someone that you know and someone that you love is going to be looking to your video game or to your app to learn, to be amazed, to go somewhere they've never been before, or to relax, or to escape. And you need to let that, from the top to the bottom, drive you every single day. Nothing else. Nothing else. And it's going to fall into place. You need to move quickly. You got to go. I'm so weird. I live on a planet where I repeat this as often as I do. If it was easy, nobody would pay you for it. I'm not going to pay you for problems 20 years ago. And the reason they're problems today is because yesterday's solutions didn't work. Like, we already tried folding them over, and it didn't happen. So you've got to move quickly, and you got to do it all. Because aiming too high, at least in my opinion, it's way, way more fun than aiming too low. It's a blast. And if that means kind of, from the myth of Icarus with the wax wings, if that means we go too close to the sun and then we fall a little bit, I'm okay with that. I said earlier that I think it's going to be okay, but I honestly think whatever you make, it's probably going to be pretty great, and it's going to be awesome. Thank you.